Oh, well, we didn't get a 3-minute video. Good morning.
Good morning, fantasy football fans.
Woo!
Welcome to Getting Defensive on this Friday morning. Glad to be back in town, hanging out with you guys. We got some good players to talk about this morning, it looks like, from what you guys just told me. First, we have in Sam, who is known as Stomp Bear Pig on Twitter. And, of course, we always have Gary, the IDP tipster, on Twitter. And I am Queen Roxanne on Twitter. How are you guys?
How's it going, Sam? I'm excited to have Sam on.
Me too.
We've been reminiscing a little bit. I've known Sam for a few years, and I'm really glad. I'm excited to have him on Getting Defensive for the first time, Sam. Thanks for joining.
I am so happy to get back into things, Gary and Roxanne. Thanks for having me on. This is the first time I've been talking about IDP since I've been back, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Sweet.
Because that's part of my repertoire, everybody, believe it or not. So,
Well,
I'm really excited and happy
you're
to be
one
here.
of the original jacks of all trades when it comes to fantasy
there you
football.
go.
Yep, I knew this. So, there's not a lot of them out there. I usually some people I worry about it because it's hard for people to concentrate solely on one thing and be really good at everything. And Sam, I know I've talked to you so much, man. I know you've got that under wraps for us. So I'm really excited to have you.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're into right now while I do some sharing?
Yeah. So I guess just to share a little bit about my mental health journey that's been going on over the last year and a half. Obviously, middle of last year, I had to take a step back just because I had so many things going on with work and COVID and whatever. And if you remember, Gary, I had way overcommitted myself. I think I was hosting at one point 4 podcasts and writing an article every week. So it was one of those ADHD things for me. So I had to take a step back, and I'm back now, working my way back slowly, writing for Dynasty Nerds a little bit right now. Thinking about starting a podcast. We'll see what happens here soon. It'll be more in the line of what I like to do and yell at people. So
right.
It'll be kind of a cage match versus type of podcast. So I'm really excited about that.
You can't use Getting Defensive. It's already taken. You gotta stay
I've
here.
already got a name and everything, and I love it. I'll just share it right now because nobody's going to take it. It's going to called Thunderdome.
Thunderdome.
And Gary, I hope both of you understand where that comes from.
You're talking about just Mad Max.
Yes.
Right.
Mad Max. Yep. So it'll be that kind of style.
Sweet.
We'll be arguing about players, and I think that'll be a lot of fun. I think it works well for what I like to do, and judge and yell at people. Like I said, working my way back slowly and making podcast appearances here, and I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah. Well, Sam, you had spread yourself out so thin just a year or so ago. There was the extra pressure of what was going on in the United States at the time, and I know that you really were wrapped up into this. And I'm just glad to see you're back in the fold. You're grinding away. You're doing your thing, man. Just keep it up because you got a lot to offer these people out here. So with that, I guess we'll get going. What do you think, Roxanne?
Let's get going, you guys. I'm really excited to hear Sam's take on the Broncos defense now. He's got me pumped.
Yep. Might as well start there.
I'm going to go full homer. Homer here. So, right before we started talking, I had said that the Broncos defense, I think, is on par with the 2015 defense, at least on paper. And by that 2015 defense, I mean that Super Bowl winning Broncos defense in 2015, the record-setting type of defense. Mm-hmm. On paper, like I said, the Broncos defense looks phenomenal because they added 2 superstar cornerbacks in Ronald Darby and Kyle Fuller, who you can make an argument about Kyle Fuller. I understand that he has not been up to standard, I suppose, that we saw under Vic Fangio
Right.
in Chicago. But he is back with Vic Fangio in a system that suits him. And he also doesn't have to be that isolation corner because he has Darby. He has, believe it or not, Ojemudia is actually a decent cornerback. They just took Patrick Surtain the second. They have Bryce Callahan, who is a Pro Bowl slot corner. So they have a lot of great secondary, which they were missing last year.
Right.
They get Von Miller back healthy.
Well, I mean, not to mention Justin, one of the best.
Well, right.
safeties.
Sorry. Yeah. Not to mention the best safety in the game, Justin Simmons.
Right. One of the best. best.
You stop it right there, Gary. He's the best.
You tell him, Sam.
And then Kareem Jackson, he's okay. I mean, he's probably,
he's extremely underrated as a safety.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's where he's a Pro Bowler. But the thing about Kareem Jackson is he can cover well too, which is very nice, which allows Justin Simmons to go all over the field, not have to worry about playing safe or playing center field out there.
Right.
But then Von Miller comes back healthy, which they were missing last year. Bradley Chubb is another year removed from his ACL injury, so he probably takes another step forward. These are all assumptions, I understand, but these are kind of the general trends that we see throughout football. I think the underrated part of this defense is the middle of this defense, really on the line. The two that I'm thinking about, Shelby Harris and I just lost his name. Give me a second. I'm going to find him.
Draymond Jones
Draymond Jones took a huge step last year.
Yes, he did.
No, I just forgot it. Ignore me for a second as I look up tackle numbers. Not Sylvester Williams. Get out of here. He got injured in the middle of last year, and I can't remember his name now.
Mike Purcell.
Yes, Mike Purcell. One of the best run stoppers in the game.
Mm-hmm. Underrated.
Like the middle of that defense, like those two right there kind of just stop everything. Because I'll enter my first guy that I want to talk about that I think you should stock up on. And it is Shelby Harris. I understand he's a defensive end for a 3-4 system, so he's not nearly as appealing. Mm-hmm. And hopefully your leagues are starting to go the route of interior defensive line versus the defensive ends or the pass rushers.
Right.
Because that's the way it should be going, by the way. This is one I think that all of us agree with here, that your leagues need to, in order to make your leagues more valuable and to make superstars more valuable in your IDP leagues, you need to transition to interior defensive line and edge rushers. That just needs to happen because guys like Von Miller, guys like Khalil Mack are not nearly as valuable in what we call traditional IDP leagues right now because they don't get the tackle numbers as a linebacker.
Right.
So that's just something that everybody should consider transitioning to.
Yeah. And you probably know, I mean, for years now, I've been, when I do my rankings, I have the interior. I literally write it out: interior defensive line and edge rushers. And I separate those outside linebackers from the 3-4, and I put them in the edge rushers with the 4-3 defensive ends. And that's definitely, it has become more of a trend. I'm happy to see this trend. But like you're talking about Shelby Harris, where he's talking about, so he is actually a 3-4 defensive end, but he's an interior defensive lineman because he's not the edge rusher. He's not on the outside. So what sites are doing, what he is speaking of, they're actually like, if you set your system up right or your format right in ESPN, they'll actually make Shelby Harris a defensive tackle. They'll designate him as a defensive tackle, which is basically interior defensive lineman, not per se a defensive end like an edge rusher. So, and that's really helped, I think. Yes, it's helped a lot of people get to know the positions a little bit better.
So, I mean, and we can talk about like Akeem Hicks for a long time was one of the best defensive ends in the game, but he was just not overly well known because He wasn't the guy that was going to get you 12, 15 sacks. He was going to get you 50 tackles, 9 sacks.
Right.
And that's extremely valuable. But unfortunately, when you're comparing to other edge rushers, it just doesn't work that way. And that's the truth for Shelby Harris too. But there's another reason I like Shelby Harris, and I'll go into his stats right here real quick. So each of the last season, in 2019, he had 49 tackles and 6 sacks. Last year, he only played in 11 games. Still ended up with 32 tackles and 2.5 sacks. Okay, not great. Not the best numbers by any means. The reason I like Shelby Harris is that dude knows how to bat passes like he earns money in the NBA.
Yeah.
Over the last 2 seasons, he's had 16 passes defended in 27 games out of a possible 32.
Yeah, that's good.
That's impressive.
Yeah, so that's another thing. Like, people don't really pay attention to things like that with these defensive linemen, but passes defensed, especially in the right league, especially if you're trying to make the secondary more valuable, especially cornerbacks, passes defense for the defensive line are invaluable. So, yeah, you may not be getting the sack numbers, but those passes defense numbers might actually be better for you in the long run.
Yeah.
And that's why I like taking Shelby Harris late, because I don't feel like I have to. I mean, I will normally go high-end defensive line first in most IDP, but Shelby Harris is a great second option if you're waiting on defensive line, because
or if
like
you
I
missed
said,
one of the big names, a couple of
if you don't get those 15+ sack guys, you can wait and get the guy that's going to get you 5 to 10 passes defensed, as well as a handful of sacks and 50 tackles.
Yeah. I like Shelby Harris. I liked him coming into last year. I was actually upset when they traded or signed Kurt for Curry or whatever.
Oh, it was Jerrell Casey. Correct.
Yeah. There we go.
Really.
And then sometimes I don't even know what he's saying.
Right.
Because I'm just trying to figure out what he's saying.
Right. Sam knows me from the old days. He knows how to read in between the shit lines.
Gary.
Right.
I'm learning.
Right. So I actually was a little bit upset when they signed him last year, because I was hoping to see Harris completely on the side. Of course, then he got hurt. So I'm talking about Jerrell.
Yeah,
right?
Jerrell Casey. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm talking about Jerrell got hurt. Then I thought, okay, cool. Harris is right back in it. And then Harris got hurt. Then you got Von Miller going down. Then you got all this. You had I think there was even maybe another injury or two.
There were that entire team was cursed last season.
Yes.
It was horrible.
This is why I might just go on a soapbox about Drew Lock at the end of this, but that's why I am not down on Drew Lock all that much this year.
Well, yeah, I could see it. It's all in tandem. And Bradley Chubb, I think this is a do or die year. I understand why he didn't have a great year last year, but he really needs to step up. And I think this is going to help him this year. Hopefully he's going to come in. You got Von Miller healthy, even though I believe Von Miller's lost a step a year or so.
Stop it.
He is still going to bring something to the table. We're not going to see him he's not going to be a top 5 sack dude.
Bet, Gary.
Exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah. But we've been working on our draft guide, and we're completely full of IDP on the draft guide that we got going on Gridiron Ratings. And guess who has a lot to do with that? And I'm sitting there like, I don't know if this calculation on Von Miller's sack total is where it was.
Did you just suggest that Roxanne is?
He won't.
Did you just say that Roxanne is adjusting the Gridiron rating?
Did I say that?
Suggest that?
No.
That.
I can't do that. But I would put him higher than Gary. I can guarantee that. That's all. But I have a love for Von, so I have Von Miller socks. Like Von Miller is king.
I can't see him get double-digit sacks.
Why?
I don't see it. I see him coming up 8 or 9. I just don't think that he's the guy that we thought he was, or what? No, not that we thought he was.
Yeah, I mean,
he's not the guy.
He's 32 years old. I understand where you're coming from.
Right.
I just my Homer glasses won't let me.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
I don't acknowledge your point here.
Yeah.
We're not listening anymore.
No,
Well,
but
I mean,
I understand. No, I get it, Gary.
They're going to limit his rotation. They're going to limit his play a little bit more.
And they should.
Right.
I think.
Right.
Well, I mean, and I don't think it needs to be to the level of like what DeMarcus Ware was in 2015, but
Right.
I do think that like that's why they got like a Baron Browning where and Draymond Jones exists, and
you know who I was just getting ready to really pull a plug on, and who I really liked that emerged last year was your lead sack guy, Malik Reed.
Yes, Malik Reed is fantastic too. I think
they got to get him in that rotation. They got to keep him in there. He didn't get enough love play last year until they really had to with them.
Yep.
And I think that he and rotation, giving Vaughn and giving Chubb a little bit of time off the field a little bit will help that situation.
No, I absolutely agree. And you know what I think last year forced Fangio to do was to adjust, because without Von Miller, you kind of force double teams on Bradley Chubb.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not saying I think Bradley Chubb's a fantastic defensive end. I don't think he's a Von Miller type where he can take double and triple teams and be.
He certainly hasn't been able to show it. He hadn't had the opportunity being hurt and all this other various things.
And that's my thing is like, I think he takes a step forward because of the fact that Von Miller is back. But mentioning 2015 again, if you actually think about that rotation, DeMarcus Ware was there. Shaq Barrett was there before he exploded, but he was a fantastic pass rusher.
He
was
a journeyman for Denver. I always wondered I guess they just had too much name to put Barrett on there, because boy, he did explode as soon as he got in Jacksonville or Tampa Bay.
But even like Josie Jewell was part of like blitzing a lot, and I think that made Vic Fangio be unique about his defensive play calls. So I think there is a lot of potential pass rushers on this team. And I understand where you're coming from.
Let's deliver our product. So you're going stock up on Shelby Harris, which is probably I'm going to guess, with all this crap that I've been looking at for our draft guide, you can probably get him in the third wave of interior defensive linemen or DLs in a standard league. And you might have a, upper tier 2 type guy out of this. So that's your stock up. Is that what you're thinking?
Yep.
Something along that line?
Yep.
I totally agree. I like Shelby Harris. If he can stay healthy and with everybody back healthy, I think he actually has a really good season and will just, has the opportunity to shock people. Don't go grabbing this guy in the first tier. But
don't ever
you're going to get your value. What's that?
The guys that I'm going to stock up on generally are going to be the guys that are lower on people's radars, because I'm going to be able to stock up on these guys. Don't ever reach for these guys.
Right. These are your best value, is to take them in the general area where they're going to fall, but expect more. So I like that one. I am curious. What you think of the the rookie Bearing of the what are you thinking about? Where is he going to fit in? Because we had him on. We talked about him about a week ago with I can't remember which episode it was, but we're thinking a couple of us are thinking that he's going to be taking either Johnson or Jewell's spot.
I think it's Jewell.
I do too. I was going to say Jewell too.
Yeah, you've been Jewell fans.
Shelby Harris, and this is just purely based on draft rankings right now on Fantasy Pros, so I don't know how realistic this is, but Shelby Harris is tier 7 in terms of defensive line. So
that's especially with him hurt last year, but he is.
So Baron Browning's interesting. I thought about putting him on here as my stock up.
I don't know if when he's a rookie.
I don't. Well, and that the stock up would be okay. I'm going to stock up on him now before he takes a starting position next year. Right. Listen, and Gary knows this. I loved Or I still love Josie Jewell. That dude.
Oh yeah, me and you both.
He is a bulldog out there. He's not like the most athletic, but his instincts are fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw it last year. He got over 100 tackles last year. But the issue that the Broncos have had for a long time, and especially since Danny Trevathan left, they had to let Danny Trevathan go, was coverage of tight ends. And I mean, being in the AFC West, you have to think Darren Waller, Travis Kelce, Hunter Henry at one point. Or, I mean, before this year, you have these elite tight ends like that you need to be able to cover. And Baron Browning, I think, gives that type of skill set because he ran a 4.6.
Yeah. He's fast.
But his field speed, his lateral speed, his sideline to sideline speed is a lot quicker. He's much more agile than he is straight lines fast, which is perfect for a linebacker.
Yeah. And
it honestly reminds me, we haven't had a guy this athletic since probably Al Wilson, that big and athletic since Al Wilson. And it seems that the Broncos wanted to go team speed this year, and that's what Browning brings. And while Alexander Johnson can be the perfect middle linebacker, and he's actually not bad at pass coverage either, I think Browning will end up being that pass coverage guy just because of his speed. And the one of his negative traits, I suppose, is he's had a hard time getting off off of blocks.
Right.
So if you use him in that kind of blitz and pass coverage type of thing for him, I think he's going to be great. And I think that's what they need, because right now they have two middle linebackers that do basically the same thing.
Yeah, and if those two me and you both wrote about Joel.
Yeah,
a couple of years ago. Yeah, we both wrote about Joel, and this was before I think that we really become friends. That we knew about this. It was we found out how much we liked Joel after the fact. But if Joel and Johnson were on any other, if they was with Philadelphia, they could probably be started. But if there's on a lot of these other teams, these are depth guys. I mean, it's really
Alexander. I just think Alexander Johnson's completely severely underrated as a middle linebacker.
So he plays the weak side, so. Right.
Well, I mean it's a 3-4 defense, so but
right.
I get where you're coming from. Yes.
Yeah. So Browning, what we have to come down to is Browning is definitely going to get the chance to replace one of the two dudes. Probably going to be Joel. And the way that they run this, and believe it or not, in my opinion, I believe that they prefer. They like their safeties. That's why Justin Simmons. Yeah. They kind of scheme. Yeah, they scheme that whole thing for Justin Simmons to be the dude that gets funneled to play. Yeah. To allow him to roll. So and then you bring the pass rush. You bring all that pressure, taking everything off of Fuller, which is a little older dude. Fuller is not going to have, like you say, to be on an island anymore, because if you got a pass rush that's worth a shit, which they will. Then you don't have to worry about, Fuller covering the guy for more than 4 seconds. Yeah. Because that opposing quarterback's got to get rid of the ball, as long as they rush like they should. So I agree. Browning would be a great fit in there.
The other thing about Browning, and this is what he was used at Ohio State, was as a blitzing linebacker. And Josie Jewell was kind of used that way last year because, Fangio was forced to kind of play that way. Mm-hmm. So Browning's out there, just because of his speed, I think he replaces Jewell just in that aspect, because I think he'll be a better blitzer than Jewell. I think Jewell was on instinct. Browning can just do it on pure speed alone.
Yeah. Well, you know what happened to the Broncos? John Elway. There was so much high hopes for that whole thing. I thought at the beginning, it was kind of the former quarterback, blah, blah, blah. But I got to tell you, he probably would have trouble getting a GM job in an arena league right now. He just,
Yeah,
I mean, he didn't bully. Yeah, I don't know.
It's his valuation of quarterbacks is the issue. Like literally everything else, I don't have a complaint about. Like we have Cortland Sutton because of him. We have Noah Fant because of him. I mean, Von Miller was the gimme pick at the time.
Right.
We have all of the you have Jerry Jeudy of all these weapons, and he even did well on defense. I mean, he picked Justin Simmons, Alexander Johnson, Josie Jewell, Shelby Harris. Like he's
to me it would be debatable.
He's not bad in every department. That's all I think is what.
But I also think that what George Patton did this year kind of shows us. Yeah, maybe Elway should be kind of the VP of player personnel and let George Patton be the GM. And because what George Patton did this year, I think was fantastic.
Well, 100%.
Personally.
Yeah. Well, Elway wouldn't be the only one. It didn't really see the value in linebacker. Linebacker is becoming this thing where they're not putting a lot of stock into it. They're doing the line, they're doing the secondary. But
it's largely because a lot of teams are playing nickel right now, and so you want that third safety in there that can cover those move tight ends.
Yep.
Because that's the thing is, for some reason, middle linebacker has become like, look at what is going on in Arizona. You have two monsters in the middle, so you're looking at like gigantic dudes in the middle.
Two redwoods.
Right.
And then, but where are you going to get the coverage from? Like, I get that some of these guys can be extremely quick, but generally you're going to want that third safety who is more of a joker type safety.
All right. So we've made it to Denver Broncos show so far.
Good.
All right. So,
nothing wrong with that.
And I was trying not to get too defensive with you guys because I'd be ganged up on between two Denver.
Oh, we take
fans,
you down.
So, I understand that. So we're only going to push it so far. Is there anybody else on the Broncos you'd like to discuss?
I mean, I like I said, Alexander Johnson, just really quickly, regardless of how you feel about him as a linebacker, the dude puts up numbers. I mean, he had 124 tackles last year and 16 starts. He started all 16 games. He had 93 tackles and 12 starts the previous year. He has, I think, two forced fumbles each of the last 2 years. He's had 3 passes defensed each of the last 3 years. Like, he's not the elite of the elite, but how I draft, I normally avoid linebacker until like the 3rd round, 4th round, because generally linebackers, unless they're like 100 sack 5 or 100 tackle 5 sack 5 passes defense guys, you're going to get similar numbers later. So I'd rather go with the more scarce positions like defensive tackle, defensive end on the front, and then get guys like Alexander Johnson coming down on the board.
Yeah. And I've been doing that myself. I 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when I first started writing, I was more of a linebacker dude. But with the change in the NFL, the change of the IDP has also happened. Like you mentioned, there's more nickel. There's less teams with every down linebackers than what there were just 5 to 10 years ago. And I'm doing the same. If you miss out on one of those big top names off the top, then you might as well go ahead and fill your defensive line. Yeah. Get those top names because there's a fewer of them. So the strategies have changed a little bit over the years, which is it's normal, you know. Not to change the subject on you.
No, go for it.
I think I'm going to throw out a name that I believe is going to be, well, I got a couple of them, but I'm going to start with Rashaan Jenkins for the Jaguars. I know he played free safety for the Chargers for the last.
Excuse me a second. My allergies are driving me crazy, and my nose is running. I'll be right back.
Okay, bye.
Rashaan Jenkins, he's a Jaguar. He's been with the Chargers as a free safety for a few years, and now he's over there penciled in with Jared Wilson, which is the free safety from the last couple of years with the Jaguars. I'm really interested. I think that Rashaan Jenkins is that type. He's got that prototype safety body that he can play the strong safety position. So over the last couple of years, we've seen him be maybe a borderline DB2, and I think that he's going to get the opportunity because there's not much of a pass rush. You got Allen over there, but the Jaguars still aren't a huge and really good pass rushing team. I think that we may see Jenkins in the strong safety position, and that could automatically put him up in the high DB2 numbers, probably. That's just a guy that I'm suggesting that people don't go grabbing him off the top, thinking you're going to get DB1 numbers. Take him where he's falling at in the draft. If he is there and you've already filled in your main core of DBs, I think he's a sneaky dude to get a hold of right now, because I think that he can really increase his value in IDP play. Any thoughts?
Well, yeah, especially at strong safety, where you're going to be playing much more in the box and get those tackle numbers up.
Yep. And Jared Wilson, I don't think that he's lost his job at free safety. It's kind of like a matter of deduction. Somebody's got to play the strong safety. They got two so-called free safeties on the thing, but I don't think they're not going to play that way. They're going to play the interchangeable, or they're going to have to move somebody there because there's nobody else on the roster.
By the way, that Jaguars defense, I don't know how good they're going to be. I think they're going to be on the field a significant amount. And I think it largely is because that team's going to be very young. That defense isn't going to be good, but that team is just young overall. Mm-hmm. Anybody who's expecting Trevor Lawrence to just shift the entire culture there. By the way, Urban Meyer is just, what are you doing, dude? Good God. He's making a spectacle. Like he's just
too many distractions there.
Yeah, as a Ohio State fan and an Urban Meyer fan when he was with Ohio State, of course, it's kind of hard not to love the dude, but I got to agree at the pro level, it's kind of become a show.
Well, and I think the first part, the first flag was, well, the free agency should be a lot more like college. Urban, what?
Yeah. How's that even translate?
Right.
But regardless, so those expecting Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne to just shift the entire culture there and make them a winning football team, you're in for a rude awakening this year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But with that, you're going to have plenty more opportunities. Mm-hmm. So Jenkins is going to have plenty of opportunities in the middle there and I'm sure they're going to be down big at some points to get tackle numbers. Mm-hmm. So, and that's another part that a lot, and I'm sure you guys harp on it too. You got to pay attention to the entire roster because a good defensive football team generally has less opportunity. A good offensive football team, like those middle linebackers, generally aren't going to be used nearly as much because of the fact that the team opposite them is going to be throwing the ball more. Mm-hmm. And while it may be negligible, there could be a difference there, and you just have to pay attention.
Okay. Which will lead me right into the next guy. I think that Anthony Harris being added on in Philadelphia is going to almost be an identical situation as what Jenkins is in Jaguars. He's a big dude too. He played free safety for the Vikings for the last few years. Mm-hmm. He's had DB1 games, but overall he kind of settled into a firm DB2 for the last couple of seasons. And I think that the way that whole, you've got an aging line except for Sweat, which I like, coming up this year. You've got an aging line there. You've got Barnett that's not really ever lived up to his defensive end height from being a rookie. He was a first rounder. Graham's getting old. Cox is getting old. You have unspeakables, in my opinion, at the linebacker. And then what do you got in the secondary? It's just they've really turned this over. And I think Anthony Harris, whether he would play free safety or strong safety, I think he's just going to eat. And I think that he is I almost like him a little bit more than Jenkins, to tell you the truth. But I like Anthony Harris to take another step, another tier up when it comes to production by the end of the year for IDP.
I like that too. I just strong safeties, unless it's like Justin Simmons, like those elite types, Byard. Strong safeties are the way to go in terms of safeties for me, just because they're going to get the tackle numbers. And Like I said, unless you get like those ball hawk types that are going to be doing like 10 plus passes defense, 5 plus interceptions, I just don't feel free safety is all that much valuable in terms of IDP. So that's why I like Harris.
On a good defense, yeah, free safeties usually don't do anything. I mean, technically you have like Poyer up in Buffalo, who's been doing it for the last 3 or 4 years of free safety, but it's another one of those one of those things, kind of like Justin, where they've kind of made sure that he's funneled, that he's left open, that he's he's the guy. It's how they scheme him. So right. There's a handful. I think that, like you said, like you mentioned, we mentioned this a few years ago, the amount of 3 safety sets that these teams are turning to is just more and more and more. Now there's also a bigger trend, and it seems like it trickled down. I can't remember. Probably it has to do with your coach of Denver, of this interchangeable. They try to interchange the safeties more from free safety to strong safety. I'm seeing those, maybe not necessarily with Denver, but I'm trying to think of this trend. It was like a group of coaches. They started doing this a few years ago, and now these coaches are off doing their own thing as defensive coordinators. So just another thing to watch for the future. I think that there's speculation that there could be more and more of this, but I like Harris a lot. I think he's going to have a lot of cleanup duties when it comes to that whole defense. I mean, you got Washington coming up. You've got Dallas is still got a bunch of weapons, and then
New York just added 3 different weapons too. I know, I'm with you. Like, there's a lot of up and coming. I mean, all 3 of those offenses that you talked about are up and coming in the NFC East, but we saw who won the NFC East, and it was Washington with arguably the best. I mean, you could argue with Tampa Bay, but one of the best defenses in the league.
Yeah.
And that's how you're going to win in the NFC East. So, and Harris is going to have plenty of opportunity because, like you said, I mean, and not to mention, like, even the running backs in the NFC East, you have Zeke, you have Antonio Gibson, and you have Saquon Barkley. So there's going to be plenty of run stopping opportunities too. They're not going to take the ball out of elite players' hands.
Even if he might be the free safety, those guys are going to pull off those 20-yard runs. There's going to be a couple of games. It's definitely, I like him a lot. You have anybody like that you would like to bring up?
Tracy Walker.
For Detroit. Back in it again?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm not, I don't know if,
I said, sell me on him. Tell me about him.
Well, I don't know if he's one of those guys where it's like, I don't know if he's good, but he's going to start and put up numbers. The Detroit went heavy on the line, the defensive and offensive line this year in their first 3 picks. They have free safety on their chart, but there's not, or 2 free safeties on their chart, but there's not really anybody to play that strong safety besides Tracy Walker, who played it last year. And we've seen him be productive tackle wise in each of the last 2 seasons. You had 103 in 2019, 87 and last year in only 15 games, but he only started 7. But he's also involved in the pass coverage, obviously, as a safety, 8 passes defense in 2019 for last year. And I mean, really, I think that where the sell is here is that Detroit is going to be atrocious this year. And what that means is plenty of opportunities for that defense, because that defense isn't going to be great, and the offense isn't going to be great. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities for that defense. And the other aspect of this is, who do you trust at linebacker there?
Collins, you got right now. Collins, that's it. He's almost a dinosaur.
I mean, like, you have Jalen Reeves-Maybin, and it's like, okay, I don't really care. Right. Jelani Tavai, like, the only reason that we really liked him was because there was nobody there. And
they reached for him. The guy was supposed to be like a 6th round pick, and they reached into the 2nd or 3rd or some crazy shit from. That's the kid out of Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they reached big time for him.
So, and then you have Alex Anzaloni, who's fantastic, but he's never healthy.
Right. Yep.
So what that means to me is that Tracy Walker is going to be playing a lot of box safety, which means, again, a lot of tackle opportunities.
Yep.
And again, in the NFC North, you have Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, and I mean, we could say David Montgomery. He's not nearly as as threatening as the other two.
Right.
But yeah, the point is the opportunity, and maybe that's just the key here is opportunity. The dude's going to have plenty of opportunity, and you're going to get him late.
Yeah. Okay, but I don't know if you remember this, but in 2019, Tracy Walker.
I do.
Yes, was one of my big breakout calls that the dude just come on and just when he was healthy, he didn't play every game, but he was just killer.
Mm-hmm.
So he was one of my breakout calls prior to him breaking out, and I love Tracy Walker. And you know what's funny is right the year after I was sitting here looking at what happened with Tracy Walker and what they did. What was the long time free safety that they had that they let go? I can't remember his name. He was there forever. But anyways, it was letting him go. So I made the call on Will Harris the following year. Mm-hmm. And he completely flopped. And I'm blaming it all, every bit of it, on Patricia. What a jackwagon type of dude runs a defense into the ground like that.
By the way, let's look at Bill Belichick's coaching tree. Mm-hmm. So you had Charlie Weiss.
Yeah.
Failed.
Yep.
Romeo Crennel failed.
Yep.
Josh McDouchebag.
McDick.
He had to go back home.
I hate him.
Yeah, you know what? I'm coming around to the fact I'm doing this altered history in my head with Josh McDaniels about well, the reason or why I don't hate him anymore is because we ended up with the Tebow season, which was awesome.
That was the greatest thing ever.
And then, but we also got Von Miller, our Hall of Famer Von Miller in there, and I'm like, well, maybe it wasn't so bad. And we had Demaryius Thomas for a while, but then I'm like, no, God. But Patricia did the same thing. Here's another one. Eric was it Eric Mancini?
Yeah,
Eric Mancini failed too. But it's just funny because they's got young guys come out arrogant from New England and just flop, and I think it's hilarious.
Hopefully Miami doesn't have that problem because right now
he seems pretty level. I like what he's doing in Miami.
Yeah. So maybe we'll have one emerge here, but there's only one Bill Belichick's been able to run a team like the Patriots, and we'll see how that goes without Tom Brady again this year. But when it really boils down to me is that Patricia, what looked like would work the year before in 2019, turned around and he totally pulled the plug on like some jackass and got away from doing what it was and tried something else, and that cost him his job.
Yes, it did.
But right now, Will Harris and Tracy Walker should both be penciled in as the free safety and the strong safety if they run a regular type of scheme. And I do love that. I think Tracy Walker is going to have that opportunity. They're there by default. There's nobody else on that depth chart at this point. So Collins has only got so much to offer anymore. He can only do so much as a man. And then you turn around, you have there was a 4th round Barnes that was drafted. I think it was Barnes. Now I'm keeping my eye on him because there will probably be another linebacker on that team that will see significant snap counts, and he could probably who's he got to beat out?
It's Jalen Reeves-Maybin and Jelani Tavai.
Right.
So there's just nothing.
Right.
God damn, the middle of this defense is terrible.
Yep. Who I really like and who I've been moving up my boards, and I've kind of been keeping this. I like Okawara. There's 2 brothers on there, but Romeo Okawara. He really came on last year. He was kind of an unheralded bright spot for that defense. And from what I read and what I understand about the new scheme, he's going to actually be kind of playing more of an outside linebacker. They're going to a 3-4 scheme, by the way. If we did not know this, it's a Saints defensive coordinator or something like that. That traditionally, they would run a 4-3 with the Saints.
Yeah.
But he sees the personnel up in Detroit as a better 3-4. So this Okawara is going to actually go to get whatever his name is. Say it.
Romeo Okawara.
Yeah, Okawara.
Okay.
But,
I like okra, but especially deep fried.
You just
way,
anything deep fried's good.
Okay.
Well,
so
yeah, no,
anyways,
like
go ahead.
So I'm going to say, like, you don't see a lot of coaches do that alter their scheme based off of personnel. Right. So I think that right there is a good promising sign for Detroit, that this guy will take what he is given and work with it and kind of work around players. Like, he's not.
Well, that's exactly what Washington did last year. That's exactly what Washington did with last year too. Besides adding a couple of key pieces. Well,
right. Besides adding Chase Young, right.
Right. Besides that. But what I wanted to get ready to say was, when I first read this and I was looking at the scheme, I was looking at the projected of where these guys would play and everything, I sat back, and the first thing I thought of was what you just mentioned, was this is great that he's looking at the personnel and trying to make it best fit for the personnel, and not take the personnel and make it jam them into something they might not be. But at the same time, I'm wondering in the back of my head, especially how he might have got this job, is to distance himself as far away as possible as what Patricia had going on there. If you could come in and have a total plan, because I can imagine when Patricia went in for his head coaching job, he goes, I'm going to take this defense and I'm going to run it into the ground by just rotating a bunch of guys and not letting anything fucking happen, right? The way it should. I can just imagine that, okay, you're hired, stamp, you're on there. Well, this guy, if he went in there and taught completely the opposite of what Patricia did, he probably had the job before he ever sat up from his chair. So I can see that distancing and a smart move, and I hope it works out for Detroit, because if there's anybody that needs something, a big ass turnaround, is Detroit. We've seen some other teams that's just struggled and struggled and struggled. At least they can make a playoff here and there, but I don't know. Detroit just needs something to happen, and it's going to take a little bit of time.
Oh yeah, no, this is. I mean, I have to imagine this is a couple years, because Jared Goff is not going to be the franchise quarterback there.
Yeah.
So I have to imagine a couple years. So, I mean,
so what you were saying about Tracy Walker, we could definitely see DB1 numbers out of him again. It's just no doubt.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, and I think they. I mean, so. Last year they had Stafford back. Their offense was a bit better. The previous year, I think, wasn't he out for like half the season?
Oh, yeah.
So he had 103 tackles. So look at it that way, where it's like Detroit's going to be, it's basically mediocre city at best on the offensive side. So you're just going to get plenty of opportunity on the defensive side. That
was 103, 82 of them solos.
Yeah.
Right. 6 tackles for loss, 21 assists. So that ratio is almost 3 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
And he had 1 forced fumble. Now, he didn't have a lot of other passes defended or anything like that, but he did it in just 12 games started. He only played 13 games that season. So there's another 4 games he could have had that he would have probably been, let's see, on average, you probably had damn near 130 tackles, combined tackles, maybe a little bit over. That's linebacker 1 numbers.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, and it's almost set up that way again this year. So it's a possibility, folks, that we just see Tracy Walker right back at where he was. That was the biggest question kept getting last year. What happened to Tracy Walker? What happened to Tracy Walker? Well, Patricia happened to Tracy Walker. For whatever reason, he fell out in the doghouse, whatever, blew his nose wrong, looked at him wrong. He didn't get the playing time. It was crazy. All right. So I see we're hitting on an hour. Is there anybody else that you would like to talk of?
I want to talk about Jerome Baker, because I don't understand why he's going so late.
Oh, see, now I'm going to get defensive and tell you that he's done this year.
You think he's done?
I think that he's out. But I'm going to let you state your state.
Well, here's my thing though. Is like I don't know why you like. Maybe he's not great in coverage, but at the end of the day, his numbers
by default.
Yeah, well, and his numbers are elite linebacker number. I mean, 126 tackles last year or 2 years ago, 112 last year, but he had 7 sacks. I just don't know, like, if that's how they're going to use him as a blitzing linebacker or as in blitz packages too. I guess I don't understand why we wouldn't take a shot on him.
I'm advising everybody to avoid him. And I'm a Buckeye fan. I really thought we had a lot coming in. All right, real quick here, and I hate to
go for it. Like the numbers to me speak. Okay, this guy
it's production by default,
elite numbers. But yeah, I mean,
let me give you the evidence that I have, and let's go from there. And
absolutely.
Maybe you'll either get defensive or you'll agree with me. All right. I'm going to try to use that word as much as possible. You know, we're on YouTube too, and they like to have these little things. So getting defensive. Anyway, all right. PFF grade last year, 55.2, well below average. Okay, the guy has been productive by default. He has not really gotten better at any point in his career. He has just been the guy. He was drafted, he was thrown in there, and he's not grown with it. Last year, as you know, I do the 32-team start-sit charts, and I'm a hawk on those snap counts. I continuously look at snap counts.
Oh, you should.
Every player in the NFL every week to do my start-sit charts. So I watched the trends. Mm-hmm. There was actually a point last year where Baker was failing so much that they turned around and put what's a Roberts guy that came from Patriots.
Landon Roberts?
Yeah. Had him starting, right, over Baker. Baker just dropped in one game there.
I see why you don't like Baker. I see a name on here that you're in love with.
Who? There's no but.
Camus Geiger Hill?
No. Okay. Now,
you were in love
with him. One of my flops. We'll bring up one of my flops. One of my breakouts.
I didn't think he was a flop. I just think he didn't get the opportunity.
Yeah. No, has nothing to do with him. I was making this call even before they went and traded for Mckinney. Okay. I was warning people of the Gridiron Ratings members last year, watch out for this. The only thing that stopped it, if you looked at the snap counts, and this is evidence of this, the only thing that kept Baker from falling was Roberts got hurt. Mm-hmm. So Roberts got hurt. You can kind of see him side by side. Roberts gets hurt. I believe he missed a couple of games at the time, or he wasn't healthy enough to play. So then by that time, Baker, the Miami season, it was like over 3/4 of the way of the season, if I remember right. They're probably sitting there thinking, okay, we're pretty well done. Roberts wasn't always healthy. So Baker got to play out the year, and he did better. He did do better, but that's just it. You'll have stretches from Baker. And I think this Mckinney trade, I think it's a pure indication they're done with Baker other than maybe a rotational role this year. I don't think that he is going to be on the field nearly as much as what he has in a possible. I am just suggesting everybody fade the hell out of him. Okay. Just indications, reading the tea leaves.
No. I mean, that's good. And honestly, because I wasn't watching nearly as closely this last season because I just wasn't nearly involved.
Right. You want a little bit of vacay. You're allowed to have a vacay.
Well, now I see, like, you see him like 100, 63, 31, and you see a Landon's go up, and then you see where a Landon got injured. Mm-hmm. That's interesting because, like, if I were to just say, okay, let's look at total snap count, he outsnapped everybody among the linebackers. Right. But he also played almost 100% of the snaps towards the end of the season when Landon Roberts was hurt. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have noticed that. So I appreciate and know the one and know too that I am not just at the time I wasn't just reading those.
because then I go researching what happened. What happened to Baker? And you got to research, and then you start seeing things in beat reporters and stuff saying they're not happy with Baker. Baker is not getting the job done. Roberts got his chance.
Sure.
So don't. I don't want people out there, not you, Sam, because I give a shit less what you think.
Okay,
but
thanks.
Out there, I don't want people to think that I'm just reading the numbers and I got lucky. There is more to hit something like this. I might be completely wrong. Maybe Baker comes back an entire dude. Maybe this 55.2 poor, way below average grade, the PFF, which I know PFF is you can arguably say, are they good, are they correct, or whatever, is still an indicator. You know, that for me, it's an indicator. And I just think that people should, who I think for Miami, they should be going and buying is one of my breakout calls. The only reason I'm going to mention him is because we're here on Miami, and that's the second-year safety Jones. I think Jones is going to come in, and he's going to have one hell of a year. So if y'all could, on YouTube or something, you look it up. I talk about him. They've already. I predicted this a few months ago that they was gonna let McCain or Rowe or both McCain and Rowe go. It's still not June 1st, so Rowe could still be gone after they just took another safety in the draft. It just probably depends. They could save another $6 million, which I think that they were kind of cash strapped to begin with coming into the season.
So I guess my question is, you think Landon Roberts gets that chance again?
No. I think it's a McKinney show. And they're going to run three safeties a lot. They're going to be in that. I think whoever's that second, I think it's going to be McKinney doesn't leave the field, and either Baker. I didn't even think that Roberts got re-signed. Did Roberts get re-signed?
Yeah, it says he's on the depth chart right now.
But whoever that other, their rotational part-time role.
I guess my pushback is we saw two linebackers a significant portion of the time last year, but if they do go to a significant three safety set, which I mean they very easily could they picked up Jalen Phillips. Mm-hmm. Or they drafted Jalen Phillips, mm-hmm. Or not Jalen Phillips, Javon Holland. I was looking at
Well, you know me and the safeties. I was just agreeing with you. Yeah, they drafted that rookie dude.
So yeah, it's one of those things for me. It's like to me, it seems like he's a default starter. So like we just talked about how these guys being default. It's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. Do you just trust Bernardrick McKinney? And that seems to be the route you're going. Is you go Bernardrick McKinney and the safeties.
If I remember right, I don't remember the terms of the trade, but they didn't give up beans for him, and they took on a really nice contract. So. I mean, just in that sense, you don't do this if you're planning on this guy coming in and backing up Baker. Right. You don't do this if you just want him to play next to Baker. You do this because you need to get the Baker off the field more.
Well, they did bring in Kyle. They did play Kyle Van Noy a lot last year, too.
Yeah.
So.
And the only thing about this whole Van Noy, we have another one of those situations where we see it with Detroit. It's just like they just signed Jason McCourty down in Miami. Eric Rowe was in Miami or a Patriot. Yeah. Jason McCourty was a Patriot. Van Noy was a Patriot. It's just this connection again. They're trying to use some of the same scheme. They haven't been as bad as what Patricia did with it as the Lions, but there's just that connection back and forth. Yeah. And Van Noy is right back up there in New England again. So it's.
I'll say this. You have made me skeptical. I think I'm still going to take a shot on Baker.
All right. I just do it a little later. If he's falling, take advantage of that.
Right. And maybe it's not in that tier 4 that I mean, that's where he's kind of going right now. Maybe if he's there tier 5, tier 6.
No.
I would probably say I would want Alexander Johnson over somebody like Jerome Baker, but yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. Yeah, McKinney, you know what? McKinney's never been a bad guy, and he's done well, and he actually graded pretty decent. You know, the only reason McKinney was expendable was Cunningham and that contract. Houston had to make a decision there. So it was
well,
the right
he was injured last year too.
Yep.
It was kind of easy, but yeah, McKinney's always put up numbers.
Yep.
I mean, maybe not elite numbers, though he did have one in his sophomore season, but he'll put up extremely productive numbers for you if you're taking him as a late round or a linebacker.
I'm sorry, Baker fans. I mean, I'm a Buckeye through and through, but you know, it's kind of like a Darren Lee call to me. Yeah. You know, eventually if they don't develop, if they can't get it done, no matter how much we'd like to think, you know, some of the writing could be on the wall. And I hope I'm wrong for your all's sake. All I think I know is I'm telling my people or anybody to listen to me, avoid them.
I would trust Gary over me, by the way. I am going to take a swing at it, but Gary does this for a living, so trust Gary more than me.
I appreciate that, Sam.
I agree.
I appreciate it. Yep.
Right,
Sam, again, before we take off, man, I make sure, please, I want you and Roxanne to talk. Let's get you back on here again.
For sure.
Let's keep your feet wet in this and get you right back where you were where you were before you took your little vacay on us.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it.
All right, folks. Hey, I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye and let Roxanne take off, but be sure to she'll tell you. Thanks for joining us.
Everybody have a good weekend. See you next Tuesday. Great talk between you two. I really enjoyed today. Sam, hope you can come back.
Yeah.
You said see you next Tuesday, and
my God.
I'm crying.
See, Sam, you coming Tuesday?
No.
No, he doesn't get it.
We'll talk later, Gary.
Yeah.
Remember,
all right, we're gonna wrap it up. Everybody have a good weekend, and we will see you on Tuesday next week.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, he's doing it. You got it, Gary?
We're still live. Bueller. Hello? They're holding me hostage. I'm gonna die.
Shut up and go get the laundry done.
Are you gonna end it, Gary, or what?
Yeah, we just like to leave this here and be quiet so that this is the last thing that they see on Twitter.
Do you know me? I'm not a quiet person.